All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Give me 1 second here and make sure my settings are good. Real quick, if you can hear me okay, please put a 1 in the chat. And I am going to quickly check my settings. Here. Perfect. All right. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Monday. If anybody's new to the channel, welcome. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. Friday, we covered the Idaho 4. It's been a long time since I covered this case on my channel. Figured since it's been just after a year since this tragedy occurred, I thought we'd kind of recap it. And it was a pretty popular show. And so I thought I would do kind of a part 2 to the show that we did on Friday. So I have more that I put together. So for a lot of those OGs that have been with me, especially that follow me on the Delphi case, I kind of did the same thing where I started adding more on into the video and the diagram and the timeline and everything because Friday we really just covered the first part up to the tragedy and a little bit after, but there's obviously more in the PC affidavit when it comes to Bryan Kohberger's movements after the quadruple homicide. So I thought we would look at that as well, and plus some other things that I wanted to grab. But before we get started, we always like to give back by featuring the missing. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll shout some people out. We've got a lot of people rolling in right now. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this show. You guys are so awesome. So today's missing, we have 17-year-old Brissa Romero. Was last seen on December 4th, so that was 1 week ago. Missing out of Carpentersville, Illinois. It says she may be traveling in a vehicle, a 2008 gray Nissan Rogue with Illinois license plate CZ64618. Once again, 17-year-old Brissa disappeared from Illinois on December 4th. Could be traveling out of state. Who knows? If you have any information, you can always call 1-800-THE-LOST. And, yay, it's Mike C. This channel is a breath of fresh air. Thank you so much, Mike, man. You have no idea. That means the world to me. I really appreciate it. And then second, we have 15-year-old Joan Claybrooks, was last seen on October 1st. Let me blow that up just a little bit, of this year. So October 1st this year. So that's been sadly 2 months. Looks like she's missing out of Nashville, Tennessee. There's not a lot of notes when it comes to her, but if you have any information, same thing, you can call 1-800-THE-LOST or Nashville PD at 615-862-8600. Okay. All right, so we'll close that. And so, yeah, like I said, if you were here Friday, I've got the same video that I played Friday, but I've added more to it, and I took a little bit out, so it's kind of a little bit faster, but it kind of breaks down the timeline from the PC affidavit. So if you're new to the channel, we kind of stick to what we know, like the evidence, but we do like to theorize and speculate. And I understand not everybody feels the same. Some people may feel he's guilty. That mentioned that, actually there's a couple of stations that mentioned that this case may not start for, I mean, they mentioned years. So it was interesting. So I'm not even sure if it'll be next year or maybe 2025. I don't know, it sounds crazy because considering, before, a couple months ago, we were looking at a speedy trial and the trial would have been over. There would have been a verdict. But that was not the case. And yeah, it seems like this. Yeah, it seems like this could take a while. All right. Let's see. Where is my video? And then when I play my video, I can shout people out. Let's see. Before and after. Where is it? There it is. Okay.
2022 at approximately 2:42 a.m. The 8458 phone was utilizing cell resources.
Okay. So real quick before I get this playing, let me center it real quick here. And I think, so they say 8458. I think that's the last four numbers to the phone number. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's when they use that in the PC affidavit. If you were wondering the numbers, I believe that's like the last four digits to the phone number that was registered to Bryan Kohberger at that time. But anyway, as I play this, like I said, if you were here Friday, you may see some of the same stuff, but I did add more to it, and especially at the end because, we're going to definitely kind of focus on his travels shortly after. But we will, for anybody that may not know this case, we'll kind of cover the basic timeline, which is the first part of the video.
That provide coverage to 1630 Northeast Valley Road, after known as the Kohberger residence. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the phone cell resources that provide coverage southeast of Kohberger residence consisted with the phone leaving the Kohberger residence and traveling south through Pullman, Washington. This is consistent with the movement of the white Elantra. At approximately 2:47 a.m., the phone stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with the phone either being in an area without cellular coverage or the connection to the network is disabled, such as putting the phone in airplane mode, or that the phone is turned off. On the evening of November 12, 2022, Ethan and Xana are seen by Bethany at the Sigma Chi house on University of Idaho campus at 735 Drive from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12th to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. Bethany also estimates that at approximately 1:45, Ethan and Xana returned to the King Road residence. Bethany also stated that Chapman did not live in the King Road residence, but was a guest of Xana's. Kaylee and Maddie were at the local bar, the Corner Club at 202 North Main Street, in Moscow. Kaylee and Maddie can be seen on footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie can be seen on video at the local food vendor called the Grub Truck.
So I just want to pause it here. Some of the, I know there's a lot of rabbit holes when it comes to this case, and I kind of mentioned this on Friday, and I think in my members live, but it seems a lot of people are going back, at least the people that may believe he's innocent, and reevaluating this Grub Truck video. And I don't know, it's a little bit out there for me. Supposedly, this guy is handing something off to one person as they're walking by. If you remember, this is, I forget his name, but he had like a little small interview kind of explaining, because he was actually at that bar with Kaylee and Maddie, and it sounded, the words he used was kind of, I think, a little bit rude, but apparently one of them bumped into him, and he didn't like that. But anyway, he did experience them, and then he also interacted with the hoodie guy, which before we had Bryan Kohberger, hoodie guy was definitely being looked at as a person of interest, at least in the public, even though I think shortly thereafter Moscow PD had said that they had cleared multiple people, including the hoodie guy. But man, the rabbit holes with this one is a little too much for me with the so-called Fight Club and like there's all these secret bets going on and I kind of looked at it just to, you know, just because I'm kind of curious, but it's a little too much for me.
At 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow, a private party reported that he provided a ride to Kaylee and Maddie at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow in front of the grub truck to the King Road residence. Dylan and Bethany both made statements during the interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by approximately 4 a.m. His vehicle would be seen approximately at 3:29, passing Linda Lane on driving west on Taylor Avenue. This camera, which we have now seen the quality of, is great, but considering the distance, it would be hard to see the details of the car. Now the car would be captured. So I kind of mixed, if you guys are here Friday, I kind of mixed two videos, my regular PC affidavit timeline and then a separate video I did where I was just adding up all the cameras that were mentioned in the PC affidavit and any that we knew, like the leaked ones from Linda Lane. And I was just kind of doing a camera counter just to kind of give people an idea how many times, the suspect's vehicle is caught on camera, which is a big number for this particular case. It's not a surprise considering, that there's cameras everywhere now. But this car is definitely caught many times. And this is just kind of giving some people an idea of just in this little incident between 3:29 and 4:20, by the time he leaves, he's caught on this camera, on two cameras, multiple times. Next, on the light bulb camera at 1112 King Road, approximately at 3:30, passing the King Road residence. This light bulb camera would actually have decent quality and can record in HD. Then before we get to the next but the next official camera to capture the suspect would be the Linda Lane 1330 camera, where the quality is not the best, but we now have seen what the footage looks like, and it first captures the vehicle passing at 3:31, then at 3:39, then at 3:57, and finally at 4:05 a.m. And then, of course, one more time at 4:07, because when I had made that video when that Linda Lane footage leaked out, I had missed the 4:07 pass, so he actually circles it a total of 5 times. Camilla, good to see you. Thank you so much for gifting a Mob Crew membership. You are so awesome. Looks like Tracy Turner was gifted a membership. Excuse me. Somebody's saying you get to see the number. So when you hit the like button, there's a number that shows what number you are when you hit the like button. That's kind of cool. And a great supporter, Tom N. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Thank you for all you do. For all your awesome content, Chris. This case feels like more than one is involved. In Delphi case, only time will tell. Hopefully they got the right guy. Just something interesting with the amount of times he passed and the times in between those passes. So clearly he passes 5 times, but in between those are 8 minutes, 18 minutes, 8 minutes, and then I think it's like 2 minutes. But what's interesting is if you were to circle around this neighborhood, it actually would take approximately 8 minutes. So it seems like between these passes, as he was circling inside King Road and around Queen Road Apartments and coming back out, it looks like he was maybe doing some canvassing. And so then he possibly drove around the neighborhood and then came back in.
And then on his second time, he did the same thing, except instead of 8 minutes, he took 18 minutes. My theory was clear there's an extra 10 minutes, so maybe as he's kind of scouting the area, I think he maybe saw a good opportunity and felt like, okay, there's not a lot of traffic, because considering this is a college town, so obviously buffering. Okay, give me a second. I can fix that. One second, guys. I'm going to plug in my Ethernet cable. Okay. Give me a second. Let me just test my connection. No data. Excellent connection. Okay. Let's see how it goes from here. Okay, I plugged in my... Usually I can go with my Wi-Fi router and usually never have any issues. So let me know in chat. I'm going to keep this up right there so I can see it. Okay. All right. Hopefully that'll keep going. Hopefully that'll work. It happens. I don't have Google Fiber. I used to. I have Comcast, which is, it's the only thing I have access to at this particular apartment. When it comes to living in apartments, you only have, usually maybe one or two choices when it comes to internet until Google Fiber eventually expands out. Hopefully they will, because Google Fiber is clearly the best. But let me know if there is any other issues, but we'll continue on. But anyway, where I left off is, I think it's definitely a possibility that between past 2 and 3, he liked what he saw, and the reason why he took an extra 10 minutes is he had pulled over somewhere and maybe, geared up, because obviously the witness, Dylan, said that he was kind of dressed in black, and keep in mind they found gloves and dark clothing in Bryan Kohberger's car many weeks later, month later. So I would assume that maybe he was just getting prepared so that you spend an extra 10 minutes. But then as he's coming back, so now it would be at 3:57, and we know that a DoorDash driver arrived, and they used the term approximately 4 a.m., so that could be a few minutes early, a few minutes after 4. We don't know exactly, but around 4 a.m. And it's just interesting that, he's passing around about that time. So I think he may have seen the DoorDash driver and waited for them to pull up to the house, and then he just went and then decided to circle around the neighborhood for another 8 minutes. And that would kind of explain why the DoorDash driver didn't see anybody. And I've seen arguments of people saying, well, why didn't the DoorDash driver see anybody? Keep in mind, DoorDash drivers, it's not like they get paid to stand there. They get paid to get in and get out and then get the next person's order. And so they arrive. If there's a special request, like let's say if you have a front door and a side door, and When you want it to the side door, you can do that. But usually, and then they're out because they've already been paid because you pay them in advance. When you order your food, everything's paid in advance. And there's no reason to communicate with the DoorDash driver unless you're nice enough to just go and pick it, because you know where they're at because you each have the same app, the driver and the person that ordered the food, and you can always see where your DoorDash driver is at, so you can kind of tell when they're close. And me, when I used to order DoorDash when I lived with my aunt, I'd usually be nice enough and I would be outside. That way I would just meet them right at the car. They wouldn't have to walk up to the door. Because I know that, they get paid by, being quick. And especially, I'm sure they make a lot of good money. I know a lot of people question, it seems like an odd time for DoorDash, at 4 a.m., but it is a college town. And if Jack in the Box, they're open usually 24 hours. And I assume on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, a lot of people are coming from the bars and, they want to get some food. And so I'm sure they probably make some really, really good tips on the weekend, especially, because I'm sure I would probably tip them because you can pick how much you tip them as well for anybody that's not familiar with DoorDash. But anyway, so then the suspect vehicle would approach at 4:05 for his fourth pass. I think he came back around and wanted to look and make sure there was nothing, nobody, moving around. Kind of scoped it for a minute and then decided one more time. So he's seen 2 minutes later coming back around. And then, in my opinion, I think a lot of us assume that the suspect most likely had parked up here, which gives you straight access to the second floor balcony. So then we move on. Oh, we got somebody that's worked at DoorDash. Ooh, cool. Micro Kimmy, I rocked on weekends. When I was working for DoorDash, I cleared 500 easy Friday through Sunday. Wow. Interesting. Thanks for the insight. So the weekends are big. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Micro. I always kind of wanted to get the perspective from a DoorDash driver and, how the tips are and stuff like that. Interesting. I would figure they would be pretty good, especially if you were working some of these later hours. So, and that makes sense. Just like if you were going to the bar, obviously bartenders uh, does it tell us that that's Bryan Kohberger? No, it's just clearly frozen. That's weird. Mine says excellent connection. Let me look at my connection. Stream settings, analytics. I wonder if this is... Give me a second. I'm just looking. That's weird. I wonder if this is on YouTube's end because here, I'll show you guys. So see where it says excellent? I'll usually have there'll be 3 colored dots. There'll be red, which is no good. That means I have terrible service. It's not connected to my yellow means it's mild and should probably fix it. But when it's green like this, it means this is good. So this might be on YouTube. We'll try to get through it. Just let me know if there are issues. Yeah. Yeah, it still says green. Maybe try to refresh. Let me know. Is it good now? That sucks. That's kind of out of my hands. Once upon a time in crime, I do believe there was some fights going on in front of 500 Queen Road. Brian, I do believe, was watching what was going on. If that was him, the last time he pulled in, you can see people either loading. I'm assuming you're gonna finish, and that was around the time that he's going around. I'm assuming. A huge YouTuber with 61K watching a couple hours ago kept losing connection a couple hours ago. Okay, interesting. So it sounds like it's a YouTube thing. That's a bummer. Well, we'll keep going. Loading something into a black SUV or changing clothes. He's seen them and stopped. We do have some vids of the fights. Interesting. All right. So anyway, we'll keep going here. Let me move this down just a little bit. But anyway, like I said, I was able to enhance this. And you can see kind of the silhouette of what looks to me like the Hyundai Elantra. That appears to be the side mirror. Can't really make out much other details considering this is terrible quality. But it is interesting that you can kind of make out this person's silhouette. So moving on.
Who received it?
So right after the DoorDash driver arrived,
who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m. Law enforcement identified the DoorDash delivery driver who reported this information.
So one thing to note before we recount Dylan's experience, it stated that she originally went to sleep in her bedroom, which, I mean, it's no surprise. It's the incident happened at 4 a.m., so she was probably, it sounds like they were all back at around like 2. And clearly, I'm assuming if not all, most of the girls had probably been drinking, so we're under the influence. But she was asleep and she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. That's probably just after the DoorDash driver came. She was woken up by the sound of what sounded like somebody playing with Kaylee's dog upstairs. And so she decided to open her door and see what was going on.
Dylan stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the second floor. Dylan stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she said sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the third floor. A short time later, Dylan said she heard who she thought was Kaylee saying something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of the records obtained from forensic download of Xana's phone showed this could also have been Xana, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. Dylan stated she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. Dylan stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Xana's room. Dylan then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." At approximately 4:17, a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up a distorted audio of what sounded like voices of a whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can also be heard barking numerous times, starting at 4:17 a.m. Dylan stated she opened her door for a third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. Dylan described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past Dylan as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door.
And this is where the latent shoe print is supposedly at.
As she stood in a frozen shock phase.
So the latent shoe print, anybody who doesn't know what latent means, it means that they had to use, basically like, if they had to find blood that was cleaned up, they use luminol testing. So they use something similar, amino black or something like that. Kind of same thing. And so I'm assuming it was either, right here or just in front of her door. But it was the, part of the sole, which had the diamond Vans, which is very unique to Van shoes. And so that is where they found that latent footprint, which is interesting. Now, definitely, I think a lot of people would have a question, considering this was probably a very bloody crime scene. How is it there like a ton of blood, footprints walking around? But it is weird. Then again, I guess we don't know all the very, minute details. Mike wrote a little comedy, levity in the situation. They cleared Murphy too quickly, in my opinion. He's just too good of a boy for my taste. Did they do a paw check? So that is Kaylee. Yeah, Kaylee's dog, right? Yeah, Murphy. Which, yeah, he is a beautiful dog.
Mel walked towards the back sliding glass.
And thank you, Micro Kimmy. And thank you for the levity.
Door. Dylan locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. King Road. Suspect Vehicle 1 is next seen departing the area of King Road residence at approximately 4:20 at a high rate of speed. Suspect Vehicle 1 is next observed traveling southbound on Walenta Drive. I believe that
That is exactly Chris David. Yes, we actually did a show with Steve from True Crime Web. Obviously, if anybody doesn't know, he worked in forensic. Usually we have him on Mondays. And eventually we will, he just moved from one state to another and just had a new grandbaby, and he's got to sell some property. He's got a lot on his plate right now, but eventually we'll have him back on. It's always awesome to get his insight, but yes, there's a picture where we see them working next to one of the Good Vibes signs, which is real close to that in the front room. And yeah, it appears that they are possibly recovering that latent footprint. So yes, that's a great comment. There's one more thing I was going to say right here.
Suspect Vehicle 1 likely exited the neighborhood at Palouse River Drive and Constanoga Drive. The phone does not report to the network again until approximately 4:48 a.m., at which time ADs utilize cell resources that provide coverage to ID State Highway 95 south of Moscow, Idaho, near Blaine, Idaho, between 4:50 a.m.
And thank you, Tennessee Shine. And you know what they found in one of the pair of shoes that they recovered from Pennsylvania when they arrested Bryan Kohberger and obviously did a search warrant on the house at the Albertsons, Pennsylvania home. They found a pair of 13 size Nike shoes. So, yes. Thank you so much, Tennessee Shine. Great comment there.
And 5:26 a.m., The phone utilizes cell resources that are consistent with the phone traveling south on Idaho State Highway 95 to Genesee, Idaho, then traveling west towards Uniontown, Idaho, and then north back into Pullman, Washington. At approximately 5:30, the phone is utilizing resources that provide coverage to Pullman, Washington, inconsistent with the phone traveling back to the Kohberger residence.
Interesting fact. Before Kohberger left his apartment at like 2:42 until he got back, during that entire time, until he got back at what, like 5 something a.m., there was a hit and run right across the street from his apartment complex, and there was tons of ambulance, law enforcement, and they were out there that entire time, because I think obviously the person was a hit and run and they were trying to find the person. So there was a lot of law enforcement activity going on just outside Bryan Kohberger's apartment before and after he came back. So it's kind of crazy. All these things, if he
during the processing of the crime
scene, he was very bold. But yeah, right here, this is what you're talking about, Chris David. This would be it.
Investigators found a latent shoe print. This was located during the second processing of the crime scene by the forensic team by first using a blood test and then amino black and protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material. The detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern similar to the pattern of Vans type shoe sole just outside the door of Dylan's bedroom, located on the second floor. Back and talk about what was found also at the scene. On November 13th at approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department Sergeant Blaker and I responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, hereafter the King Road residence, to assist with the scene security and processing of crime scene associated with 4 homicides. Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor on the north side of the building. Smith and I walked upstairs to the second floor. Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and personal.
And so sadly, this is Xana's bedroom. From what they said when they entered, they make it sound like Xana was laying on the floor somewhere around in here. Don't know exact the position, but as they were coming in, she was laying somewhere around in here. It sounds like Ethan was on the bed, I believe. I'm not 100%, but it sounds like a lot of the attack, especially from Ethan and his wounds, the blood. This wall right here, this back wall, sadly would be on the other side, the infamous picture that shows blood coming through the cracks. That would be this wall here. Seems like maybe they didn't seal the with the wall and everything properly, and sadly, blood spilled out.
Belongings found in her room was Xana's.
A lot of them, in particular, looking at their shoes, and a lot of them. Vans is a popular pair brand. Of course, I skateboarded, so I had many pairs of Vans.
Approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Xana, laying on the floor. Xana was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. On the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee. Hereafter, Kaylee's room. I later learned from review of Officer Nunez's body camera there was a dog in the room when Moscow Police Department officers initially responded. Smith.
It is supposed to be Queen Road, but is now known as King Road. Yeah. I think once they flipped that, it's very confusing.
Then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the third floor. This bathroom
because next to this house is Queen Road Apartments. So technically this should be 11 22 Queen Road.
A wall with Maddie, hereafter known as Maddie's bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the third floor. As I entered this bedroom, I could see two females in a single bed in the room. Both Kaylee and Maddie were deceased with visible stab wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Maddie's right side. This sheath was later processed and had K-Bar, USMC, and the United States Marine Corps Eagle Globe.
And so one of the things that was really disparaging, and then we're going to get to some new stuff here in just a second that I didn't show on Friday that I built on. This is, yeah, what was really terrible to hear, obviously, I mean, everything's terrible, but it sounds like the parents knew that where the girls were laying on this bed, and obviously Kaylee, sadly, she was laying between the wall, and Maddie was on the outside. So Kaylee, so the attacker, it sounds like, started attacking Maddie first, and sadly, Kaylee is stuck pinned between this wall and her friend getting attacked. So she has nowhere to go, which is really, absolutely terrible. But this is obviously very important because this is where the sheath was. And I asked Steve from True Crime Web, do you think he had this belted to him? Because, these do have, you could strap him to your belt. But he says most people, you will usually just have the K-bar in their pocket with the sheath in it. So they would just pull it out, and then they would just pull the knife out of the sheath instead of, because you can actually see where there's like a loop where you could actually put it on your belt. That way the sheath is with you at all times, but it sounds like that's not what he did. And he just had it like maybe in his pocket or whatever. And he pulled it out, pulled out the knife, and then set it down, and then sadly, attacked the two poor girls. And, who knows, maybe one of them, depending on where he set it down, maybe they kind of ended up covering it or something. Who knows? And then, of course, you could only imagine with all the commotion that it would be easily forget that, you have this thing that you laid down and was left behind.
An anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA, suspect profile, left.
And the DNA profile, for anyone that's wondering, it was actually located on the inside button. So not this part, but the inside button, the snap, because that is metal, and that will retain DNA better than this surface here. And that's obviously coming from Steve, former forensic. And that would make sense that why everything else had no DNA on it. Because you would think, like, somebody gripping this, there would be DNA, fingerprint DNA or something, anywhere along this area here. But there was nothing, which means the alleged killer clearly had cleaned this, but forgot about the snap under the button here, which would have retained just enough DNA. So,
on the bottom snap of the knife sheath. Both Bethany and Dylan were inside the King Road residence at the time of the homicides and were roommates to the victims. Bethany's bedroom was located on the east side of the first floor of the residence. Besides, the alleged killer Bryan Kohberger then had.
But Pickle Toast Grandma, so, because to me, and I'm speaking, so obviously I am completely naive to when it comes to vegan. To me, it seems like there's kind of like two versions of vegan, and I'm probably speaking out of line, so please correct me. But there's kind of like vegan where, I'm not going to sleep with any pillows made out of this or animals, anything. It's not just food. It's not just that. There's eating eating vegan, those people, and then there's the step further, which is being vegan. Like you're against not only do you have the diet, but you're actually against anything that's made out of material and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to know if if he's just on a vegan diet, but he's not like a vegan advocate. Does that make sense? And like I said, I've never known anybody vegan like personally, so I can't really elaborate on that. But let me know your thoughts. But it kind of sounds like that to me. It's more about his diet, just because this is about his visual snow, and he has to have that vegan diet for his visual snow. So I wonder, is he, actually like a vegan, or is he just got the vegan diet? If that makes sense. So here we're gonna come up to the new stuff that I added from Friday. So give me.
Headed south, where he would ping for the first time at 4:48.
Teresa says, Chris, in one of the photos of one of BK's traffic stops, looks like the knife puncture marks on his car. Oh, I did see that. Yeah, if we get some time, let me write that down. I did see a video of that. And I do have that video. Puncture marks. Yeah, if you guys want to check that out, it's a little interesting. Puncture marks. So anyway,
where he turns his phone back on. He would loop back around southwest, then heading north, where he would be captured on camera at 5:25 a.m. at 1300 Johnson Road. It's unclear the model and quality of this camera. Right. Then finally, at 5:27 a.m., it says in the affidavit the suspect's vehicle is captured at the same intersection at Stadium in Nevada, which has at least 3 cameras. Then he is captured moments later at this intersection, which also has multiple cameras, where he then would finally end up back at his apartment complex. Right. So the total no...
But that's, to me, that's just going off his vegan diet, because he doesn't want anything with meat. So I would like to know, did he have stuff that was made out of animal products, Like I said, is this just vegan diet only, or is he an advocate, like a vegan advocate that, and like I said, this is a little bit out of my wheelhouse, because I don't, never known anybody personally close that was a vegan, and I definitely naive to that kind of area. So
cameras is approximately 13, and that's going off the PC affidavit, which I'm sure could have left. Cameras I mentioned on Queen Road were working. We could easily have over 15 cameras.
So now we're going to go on to the new stuff that I added since Friday. Okay, so we didn't really talk about what he did after, and I wanted to kind of break this down, but okay, so we did talk about the sheath already. So obviously, Bryan Kohberger would drive back home. He'd be back about 5:20 or so. And then a few hours later, now keep in mind, the sheath was left back at the house. So, oops, that kind of goes back fast. So he decides, after he arrived at 5:30, that he is now, he has his phone on, and he leaves at 9 a.m. So now it's been, that would be 3.5 hours later. And he decides to take the same trip, more or less, that he took, at 3 o'clock, so it would have been 9. So 6 hours prior, where he had turned off his phone, because I know some people have argued, well, he could have lost service, but he literally makes the same drive and he is being tracked. To me, and in my opinion, I think this is in a rush. And just let me know, and let me know what you guys think. The fact that he didn't leave his phone at home, the fact that he didn't turn it off, to me sounds like he's in a rush because he realized that the sheath was left back at the house, most likely, and he's going back there in possible attempt to possibly go in and recover the sheath, or maybe see if, I think at the very least he's checking like the parking lot of where he parked just to see if maybe it fell out of his pocket. Um, so that would just be my theory on that anyway. But he's only there for 9 minutes. But it is interesting that he drives right back to where there just happened to be a quadruple homicide. For anyone, that believes that he's innocent, it's really weird that he's driving right there for 9 minutes. He doesn't go to the store. What was this trip? Like as far as like if you're innocent, like what's the explanation? I mean, you you drive right where there was a quadruple homicide, and then you drive back home. Um, seems a little sus to me. But in my opinion, I think he went to see if maybe it like maybe fell out of the car or something. Uh, uh oh, good some insight for someone that was a vegan. Paula Lee, I was a vegan years ago. He is only eating vegan. He would not have a leather sheath if true vegan. Yeah, so that's what I'm just trying to argue, and I'm probably not the right person to argue it because I've never been vegan, so I'd be kind of out of place to really expand on that. But it's great to get insight for somebody that would know a little bit more about it, because that's what it sounds like. He's got the vegan diet because of his visual snow situation, and is he out there protesting, for animal rights and stuff like that? Doesn't sound like it. Rennie Bear, what if he was a non-alkaline vegan? I don't know what that is. Sorry. I'll have to look that up. Yeah, so that's why, yeah, because I had seen this argument when I first mentioned vegan a long time ago when this case first started. Vegans don't use anything that's animal. Yeah, so there's like the term vegan, where you're against the animal, and then there's just having a vegan diet. To me, that seems like there's the two. Yeah, I'm sure there's more to that, but that's just from my experience. Um, Gail Hurd gifted one Mob Crew membership. Thank you so much. Looks like Tennessee Shine got gifted the Mob Crew membership. Chris says, I think he panicked. I agree. Chris David again says he thought he could outsmart everyone. I think, yeah, totally. Ooh, Maria thinks a little bit differently. I think the knife sheath was intentional, fake clue towards military. Ooh, now I could see that as well. And then maybe he thought that sheath was clean, so there was nothing going to tie him back. Unfortunately, there was that little bit of DNA. I could definitely see that angle too. If he was vegan, why was he seeing it? The grub truck. That was not Bryan Kohberger at the grub truck. That was a possible person of interest. So no, that wasn't. That was a different person, Cunningham. Um, but yeah, it would be interesting to know some of his more some of his background as far as what was his habits and stuff. But anyway, so moving back onto the timeline. So quickly rushes over to the Moscow again, and then comes right back. So he left at 9 a.m. and he's back within 30 minutes. Such a weird trip. That is all recorded on his phone. So here in the left, I basically have it shown like when they're tracking him, and then whenever he turns his phone off, you'll see the phone is off. So I left that up there for you guys. Now, so he comes back home at 9:32. He stays home for sorry, I'm just looking at what I got up here. So yeah, he gets back at 9:30, and then he leaves at 12:36. Well, he actually shows up at 12:36. So he probably left because he shows up at Kate's Cup of Joe. So I think he would have probably left, considering it takes about 44 minutes. I'd assume he left a little bit before noon. So about a little less than 2.5 hours after he came back home, Bryan Kohberger would then travel again. And this is really weird. So now he would travel south about 30 so miles. Keep in mind he passes this little town Johnson, which will become important later. Now we know we've never found the murder weapon when it comes to this case. And it just so happens that this area he's traveling to has 2 bridges that he will now drive over a total of 4 times, because 2 times going one way and leaving. The 2 rivers are Clearwater River and the Snake River. These are pretty big rivers. And could it be possible that this was an attempt to ditch the knife? This would be a great, in my opinion, this would probably be a great disposal site. Especially considering you not only have 1 bridge, but you have 2 bridges that you would be passing over. Oh, did I miss one? Sometimes they don't pop up. I'm sorry. He was trying to do with his vegan diet was supposedly helping him with his visual snow. Yes, I just read it. Second time, I might have read it when it froze the first time. Okay, now I'm getting an error. This is the first time. Okay, let me see. That's the first time I got an error at 6:37. How is the stream now? This sucks. Exactly, Alan. He could have kept going south and been at the Lewiston Albertsons in 2 minutes. Why go to Clarkston? And you know what's crazy? Not even that is so Safeway. We'll get that. We'll get to there in just a minute. Yes, and I'll show you, Alan. I will show you something here in just a minute. Because I used to work for Albertsons for almost 8 years. I began as a bagger, worked my way to a dairy manager. But I'll show you guys something here in just a minute about Albertsons. So, let me just recap a little bit, just in case if it was frozen here. But definitely a couple places he could have tossed his knife over the bridge. To me, that would have been a smart play. So he is then seen. So he goes past the Albertsons that he would eventually shop at. Sorry, I should have slowed this down a little bit. So here's the Albertsons that he would eventually shop at here for a minute. But he passes it. And he passes this Kate's Cup of Joe at 12:36, and he's actually seen on this camera at the UF Foods chef store, which is mentioned here in the affidavit. The actual camera is actually right here. So here's Kate's Cup of Joe, and here is the camera. And it doesn't really explain what he does next, then other than 10 minutes later he's at Albertsons. So which would only take 2 minutes from where he was just caught driving past. So here's the questions. What did he do for those 8 minutes? And it just so happens that you have an entrance close to the river right there. He could have also attempted to dispose weapon or clothing. But eventually, 10 minutes later, he would arrive at the Albertsons at 12:46. At 12:49, he would exit the vehicle, and he would let me back this up because it goes fast. So it says surveillance footage obtained from Albertsons showed Kohberger exit the white Elantra at approximately 12:49. That's when he exited. Interior surveillance cameras show Kohberger walk through the store, purchase unknown items at the checkout, and leave at approximately 1:04. So, which means he was in there for about 15 minutes. It'd be curious to know what he bought, because I know some people say, well, if he was vegan, maybe they're the only place that has a certain vegan item that he'll buy there. Now, that would make sense, but this is where criminology, victimology would come into play, where is this a store that he would normally drive to when he moved out here to Washington? Or is this like the first time he's ever been there? And more importantly, what items did he buy? But if this is a story that and he's never frequent, this is clearly going to raise some red flags, because it's going to be, why are you driving over 30, 40 miles to this Albertsons when there is a Safeway? So Safeway and Albertsons, they're kind of the same thing. It's like Kroger and Smith's for those that are on the east side here in the United States. They're the same company, Kroger and Smith's. It's the same with Albertsons and Safeway. And there just so happens to be a Safeway literally in Moscow. So, yeah. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. What do you think he bought there? I would think some cleaning supplies. Assuming he's guilty, I would think, usually what do we normally see in prior cases? They either buy a shovel, garbage bags, gloves, bleach, those kind of things. Let me know what you think. Mike C says, I'm thinking Ziploc bags. Interesting. Miranda says, I don't know if the sheath was left on purpose, but I honestly think he lost it accidentally. I kind of think he did as well. But I could see both too. Bleach. Oh yeah, that's right. He was bleaching out his car months later, or a month later. Band-Aids. Ooh, yeah. You can get Band-Aids anywhere, at a gas station. I agree, Daisy. I think there's a good possibility he had to have worn something, um, like a Tyvek suit. Um, yeah, and I think Steve thinks. I think Steve's has mentioned that as well. A Tyvek suit would be. You could definitely dispose that pretty quickly. Alan says, I think he threw the knife and bloody clothes in trash instead of the river. Interesting. But he does one more thing after this, which is really weird, which tells me he has more to dispose of. So after his little trip at Albertsons for 15 minutes, and the prosecution is clearly going to grill him and ask him, well, I mean, if he was on the stand, but they're going to clearly question and look into, is this a story we normally go to? If not, this really doesn't line up. So then we know that he leaves. It's mentioned that after that he leaves. And then this is where the PC affidavit kind of doesn't really give us, it gives us one last little detail, but we don't know what happened just before and then what happened after. So after the Albertsons incident at 104, we don't really know where he goes exactly. Even though his phone is on, because they would have mentioned it if it wasn't. So it's possible he could have driven back home. But then all we know from there, because this is kind of the last details that we get as far as his movements that day, is that at some point, 4 hours later, his phone is pinging in Johnston, Washington, which is kind of the halfway. But for some reason at 5:32, between 5:32 and 5:36, he then turns off his phone. And within a 24-hour period, there's only 2 times he turns off his phone. One, he does it for 2 hours, which is in between the time frame of when the homicides happen. So clearly, that's huge. And then the second time is this time here where he has his phone off for 3 hours. So it begs the question of what was he doing and why did he have to shut off his phone? Man, YouTube, you're killing me. Oh, Sophia. Sophie. I think he covered his car with the missing shower curtain. Oh, that's right. That was a missing shower curtain. And wrapped everything up and burned it all in the woods in those 3 hours. Ooh, I like that. Oh, great point. I can't imagine him being messy enough to shower without without a curtain. Plus, apartment tubs are tiny, and he's not tiny. For a guy that's 6'3", and right behind me is a very tiny tub, I totally agree 100% with that. All right, it says we're back. It says we're back to excellent condition here, so hopefully we're good. We're kind of finishing up here. I'm so bummed that happens. We still got some stuff to talk about, but so here's the other question, and something interesting is this place in Johnson is close to where. So here's a look at Johnson. And if you're wondering what is out there in Johnson, Washington, this is a screenshot. He was out in this area for 3 hours, but we don't know, what he was doing. I think he was traveling around. But this is basically just, there's no stores, no housing, just rolling hills and farms. It's very rural. But what's interesting is, so here is Johnson right here. Remember, his phone was turned back on somewhere around here, and then he traveled down this way when he was coming back from after the homicide. So it makes me wonder if there was something he saw when he was coming through this way here, when he was coming back home. Something caught his eye, a good disposal area, and that eventually he would come back, go to Johnson, turn off his phone, and somewhere in this area here is where he disposed of some evidence. That's just my opinion, of course, but let me know what you guys think in chat. But I definitely think clearly for him to turn off his phone one more time was definitely in an attempt to hide something that he was doing. So that was a great question, Jason, because they did say Johnson, Idaho in the original PC affidavit, which is, many, many miles east. But that was a typo. It's actually Johnson, Washington. As a matter of fact, if you look at it, the way it's worded, it's really interesting the way they word this. So I'll read it out. Additional analysis of the records for the 8458 phone indicated that between approximately 5:32 and 5:36 p.m., the phone utilized cellular resources that provided coverage to Johnson, Idaho. Yes, that's a typo. The 8458 phone then stops reporting to the network from approximately 5:36 to 8:30. Now, this part is important. That is consistent with the 8458 phone being in the area that the 845 phone traveled in the hours immediately following the suspected time the homicides occurred. So they're saying that this phone was in the area just after the homicides occurred. So that's why, and it was cleared. It is Johnson, Washington. Yes, I know there is a Johnson, Idaho. I don't think it's an official Johnson, Idaho, but we did find it. I don't know if it's an actual Johnson, but yeah, you can look it up. It's many, many miles east. But yeah, it is Johnson, Washington. Michael gave me Tennessee, right? He vacuumed at 3 a.m. I'm OCD and will cry if someone splashes water out of the shower. Oh. Deborah Chase, where you at? Okay, sorry, I'm just checking all the different chat. Okay, so a couple more things to go over. Let me check my status here. I'm so bummed that the stream wasn't going as smooth. Like I said, it's still saying green, so that's good. But a few more things. Where is it? Where are you? Okay. So, for those that think he is guilty, here's something to remind people, because I do see people saying, and I understand there's people out there that believe he's innocent. Everybody has their right to their opinions. Um, but the comments that bug me are the people that say, "How can you believe Bryan Kohberger's guilty? There is no evidence. They have no evidence on him." Well, let's just look at this. As of June 12th, so keep this in mind, as of June 12th, so it's been 6 months, so I'm sure there's more. The prosecution has given the defense in the Idaho 4 case, the Bryan Kohberger case, 51 terabytes of information. 51 terabytes is 51,000 gigabytes. That is, compared to Rex Humerman's case, which is, so Bryan Kohberger's case is months worth of investigation. Rex Humerman is years worth of investigation, possibly even up to decades. They have 8 terabytes of material, equivalent to about 2,500 pages of records, along with about 100 hours of surveillance video recorded outside Humerman's home and office prior to his July 13th arrest. 51 terabytes, thousands of pages of discovery, thousands of photograph, hundreds. So they've got tons of his phone records, what he's doing, where he was at. Social media data. That's going to be huge, because that's something that's been speculated but not really elaborated on, because there's been, was he talking to one or more of the girls before this ever happened? And I think if they got social media data, clearly there's got to be some stuff that shows him. 10,000 pages of reports and written materials, nearly 10,000 tips. So, once again, comparing these two cases, one that's been in months worth of investigation, 51 terabytes, compared to years and years, you have 8 terabytes. So, they've got a lot of evidence against Bryan Kohberger. And to me, I'm sure when, because remember that they were going to have a speedy trial, I'm sure when they started sending over the discovery, when they started seeing all of these 1,000 pages, thousands of photographs, gigabytes of electronic phone records, there's no way that they were going to try this with a speedy trial. Lisa Farr, was his car seen on camera on his trip in the morning after? You mean on November 13th? Yes. Yes, it was caught on it was caught on mini cameras. Yes. Trying to think. The Kate's Cup of Joe one. Before that, when he was leaving, when he went back to his home, it was caught on multiple cameras. I have a specific video that literally breaks down all the cameras, and that's not all of them. So yeah, it's clearly a lot. And then just to kind of finish up on one last thing here, I wanted to look up. We did talk about during our special members live, his sister, and how his sister had suspected Bryan um, before they had arrested him because he was wearing gloves around the house, latex gloves and stuff like that. Um, but here's just some of the things. Now, I know right now this is kind of more alleged for right now. Um, but investigators are scanning the University of Idaho suspect Bryan Kohberger's online data for potential evidence and have even requested his Amazon history to find out possible knife purchases. On May 8th, Latah County investigators demanded Amazon provide detailed customer click activity pertaining to knives and accessories for a redacted user between March 20 and March 30th. Also between November 1st and December 6th that same year. In addition to possible knife purchases, the warrant also requested detailed shopping records, wish list, viewing history, as well as payment information in all emails. The data was received by law enforcement in July and is now in evidence. Police previously confirmed that the 4 victims were attacked with a knife. Officials have also linked the DNA found on the DNA found on the knife sheath. The Amazon warrant was uploaded to Kohberger's case docket late Tuesday. Obviously, this was in September or July. In addition to Kohberger's Amazon history, the update included warrants for Kohberger's Apple, PayPal, Venmo, Spotify, and YouTube information. What was the other one? There was one more that was interesting, but obviously they did a Dateline series where they claimed that they had a source that says that Kohberger had bought a K-bar off Amazon. Now, for right now, we don't know that to be 100% fact, but the fact that they are looking up pulling his Amazon records, to me, that adds some validity to that being possibly true, which isn't going to help his case. Anyway, anything else? You guys have any questions that I could answer? Obviously, I don't have all the answers, and I think we're all here because we want justice for the victims of Xana, Ethan, Kaylee, and Maddie. Let me finish the poll up. So the poll ended with 56% thinking it's going to happen next year. So most of you think it'll happen sometime next year, 2024. And then I think the next highest was 2000. The next highest was not sure, and then I think 2025. But I think about 60% of you believe it's going to happen this coming year. Princess says, I don't think this is BK's first rodeo. Who knows? I mean, considering what he was, studying criminology. Throwing your garbage in neighbors is sus. Going through garbage in the middle of the night with gloves on that probably match the crime scene is weird. Thank you, Brandy. Or is it Brand? Yeah. I know some people had said, well, I throw my garbage in my neighbor's trash can all the time. That would make sense if your trash can's full, but keep in mind that they were surveilling him for quite a bit. They supposedly even saw him using bleach on his car. So I wonder, I'm sure this may come up in court. If their trash can wasn't completely full and he's throwing stuff in the neighbors, that's not going to look good. Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, I kind of mentioned it, but so like I said, because I worked at Albertsons, so I know all the companies that are associated with it and stuff. But there's a Safeway right here. So Safeway is. So let me just show you. Safeway is connected to Albertsons. So both Albertsons and Safeway were in Utah at one time. They're not anymore, but pulled out. Yeah, that's why I quit because I saw where Albertsons was going. I could have been like a store manager, but I was even on the fast track to become a like the store manager. But then all of a sudden they went bankrupt, and yeah, I saw it going sideways, so I ended up getting out. But I loved it when I worked there, of course. But anyway, yeah, Albertsons and Safeway, just like I said, Kroger and Smith's, same thing. And so it's like, why are you going to Albertsons when this is 10 minutes away, or you're driving 44 minutes this way to get something? I think was his name, the founder. Uh, and one of the things that they wanted to separate themselves from other grocery stores is they wanted their customer service to be second to none. That was going to be the one thing that separated them from other stores. So when it came to training, we were always supposed to greet everybody. Now I've worked at Walmart for like 2 months, maybe less. I couldn't stand it. I've worked maybe one or two other grocery stores, but Albertsons prided themselves on their customer service, and because we knew, especially once Walmart opened up, we weren't going to be able to match them with their prices. So, we were always making sure that we took care of our customers when it came to walking them out to their car, as far as, if there's, someone, older or elderly. Whereas now, customer service, especially grocery stores, at least in my experience, is next to none. Next to none. Um, yes, and Vaughn's. Yeah, Vaughn's as well. Yeah, that's right. Vaughn's as well as part of that. My dad made ice cream for Safeway for 37 years in California. Oh, wow. Ooh, ice cream sounds good. Thank you so much, Tennessee. Yeah, if you can, please hit that like button. I'm sorry that we had a kind of a not the best uh, live show when it comes to the stream quality. Uh, but you can't, sometimes things are out of your hand. What can we do? So we will be back on. Yeah, I agree. Walmart people are mean. Not all Walmart people are mean, but yeah, there's been some stores that I've walked into that, yeah, we prided on ourselves being clean. Like I said, once Walmart started, we knew we had to stick out. I mean, it was way before Walmart when it came to customer service, but we knew it was going to be a losing battle eventually. But anyway, I just want to quickly shout out everybody that could afford it, that donated. Thank you so much. Uh, really appreciate the support. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much. So shout out to Camilla, Tom, Micro. Thank you so much for the new membership. Gail for the Mob Crew. Um, Gifted and Camilla for the Gifted. Um, we will be back on tomorrow, and we might try to cover a new story. Also, keep an eye on Rex Huerman. There's some interesting info that we'd probably want to cover as well. There's one other thing I was going to say. I can't think of it right now. But thank you guys so much. And shout out to my wonderful mods, Karen. I saw Jennifer in here, Jocelyn. Not sure if Copper Horse was in here. I know she does a lot of channels, but yeah. Hope you're doing better, Jennifer. Anyway, we'll be back on tomorrow. If Steve's going live back regular, it may be slightly earlier show or later. Most likely earlier though, just slightly earlier, like an hour before. So 6 p.m. Eastern. So, thank you so much, Harlot. Hey Don, oh, I'm so late. Thank you, Cunningham. Good to see you. And also, I'm going to be getting caught up on my emails. And other thing is, I'm working on my Patreon stuff. I'm a little behind. I decided to do something different for my Patreons because I want to. I wanted to do something different. So for my Patreons, I am working on something, and it will be out soon. All right, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful night, and go ahead and play her out.